The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
There's a new bar in town. Welcome to the Turnbuckle Arms, where the banter flows like wine and the topics are as fresh as an ice-cold pint. So pull up a chair, grab yourself a glass, and welcome your hosts, The Brood!
Hello and welcome to the Turnbuckle Arms podcast. My name is Michael. I'm joined by my fellow Brood member, Chris. Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Doing?
Good, mate. Yeah, good.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you've joined me on this special Shots edition from the Turnbuckle Arms. And this time we're going to talk about favourite matches. But we're going to talk about AEW today. So, obviously they've been around for over a year now. And they've had some amazing matches, some fantastic pay-per-views. But I just wanted to pick your brain about what favourite match or matches you have from the history of AEW, whether that be Dark, Dynamite, the pay-per-view itself. So, what have you got?
Sure. So I've broken this down into pay-per-view and TV matches, most of them on Dynamite. Not that Dark hasn't had some good matches, because it has, more in the early days, I think. But in terms of pay-per-view, I think really to look at the whole Revolution 2020 pay-per-view, three of them could be found on there, which says a lot about the state of that, I think. Most people agree that one of the best matches AEW has was the Young Bucks versus Omega and Page for the tag team titles. If you know anything about the story that's been built so well between the Elite and the kind of infighting, it had so much kind of build up to it. And it's an ongoing storyline, as I've said on other shows. I love that this Elite storyline doesn't stop, with a match. It continues to go. So this was a stop along that long journey. And you found Omega and Page, especially Page, battling his emotions and his friends here with the Young Bucks. And they pulled out all the stops. Every finish you thought was going to be it was a false finish. Some really tremendous spots. I'm not going to go into the match itself, but just why it was so good. It was a really decent length, and it really did what I know the Jackson brothers have been very keen to do, which is highlight the tag team division in AEW. And it was a spectacular tag match, full of emotion. And again, the ending, with Page kind of walking away, celebrating a little with Omega, it left kind of the ending in doubt what would happen next, and it made me want to watch a little more. It was reminiscent of the Young Bucks versus Kota Ibushi and Omega, the Golden Lovers as well. In that it was full of emotion. And so for me, that was definitely one of the top matches. The next one is also from Revolution, as I said, which was Sammy Guerrero versus Darby Allin. I think that was from Revolution 2020, when they barely had about 10 minutes to go at it, but they gave it their all. It was like a video game. The special moves were being spammed. It was insane. Everyone knows Darby's relentless attitude, and he just kept going at Sammy. But Sammy was determined to top him with some ridiculous, I think a 630 splash, onto the table at one point. They're two of my favorites. And I said at the time that AEW, and I'm glad looking back now, I could be quoted on this, saying that they knew exactly what they had with Darby Allin. And it's come to pass, because, he is now the TNT champion, and rightly so. And Sammy has got ridiculous potential as well. So to see, for people who want to criticize AEW and talk about how it's ex-WWE in there, I'd show them that match and say that, look, these are two almost homegrown talents, because they don't have a developmental system as such. Well, they didn't. But yeah, look at that match, and I'll show you two young, talents in AEW who will lead, along with people like Jungle Boy and MGF, that generation on, and they will be the future headliners, of AEW. And then I've got a match which was almost too violent for pay-per-view, was Omega versus Moxley at Full Gear, which
Pardon, sorry?
The
Lights Out match.
Yes, the lights out match, yeah, which was a great way to coverage. You know, if you think about the highlights from that match, they are just crazy. You had Omega sweeping Moxley with a barbed wire broom over his back. You had a Phoenix splash from Omega onto the exposed floor wood floor of the ring that had been turned back, which was incredibly brutal to watch a man flipping it and knowing he was going to land on a solid wood panel. You know, and in the end, you had, I think, a few paradigm shifts onto that same exposed wooden panel. That was a brutal match. So for me, I've picked them out as the top three kind of pay-per-view matches, or top four, that you know, I could recall, and the ones that certainly stick in the memory. And there's no coincidence, you know, having seen what a spectacular job he's done on this week's Hard to Kill Impact pay-per-view, that Omega is in two of those matches, which says a lot about what he means to that company and how he can elevate people. So yeah, that's my pay-per-view. I can go on to the TV.
Yeah, go ahead.
No worries. On TV, there's obviously not been so many because everyone knows you should save the best for the pay-per-views. But having said that, ones that stick out in my mind, Cody versus Wardlow, mainly because it was the first cage match they had on AEW, and that spectacular moonsault, which led to a broken toe for Mr. Rhodes. And also, Wardlow came off pretty good too. That you've got to think, he talked about it later, that was his first match. He's on national television and he's fighting Cody Rhodes in a cage match. That's some real pressure on Wardlow to really step up. And he did. You know, everyone knows he's a future star there.
Basically wrestling your boss.
Yeah, exactly that. Imagine that, and the pressure to carry that off in a huge main event. Plus, it was part of a much bigger storyline with him and MJF, which was brilliant. I've also got down here the kind of match they had, but the continued rivalry almost of my favorite, absolute Ricky Starks versus Darby Allin, which has now evolved, but they had a fantastic match as well on Dynamite not even that long ago, and I would love to see those two just keep going at it. I think they're natural rivals. Everything about their look, Starks being the swaggering kind of, you know, good-looking man versus Darby, who probably couldn't give, you know, two craps about the way he looks. I think it's the perfect yin and yang, isn't it, you know, of those two. And when Starks came out dressed as Darby Allin, you know, that was fantastic. That's old school kind of heel bait, that is, to mock your opponent like that. And then finally, I've got down very recently Darby Allin again versus Brian Cage from night 2 of New Year's Smash just recently, last week, because again Darby took a hell of a lot of punishment, and it's difficult to finish that match with Cage still looking kind of strong, but and have Darby walk away with it. And he does this so well, this thing where Darby fights from underneath all the time, you know, and he just uses his whole body as a weapon. And Cage is the best man they could have had to fulfill that dynamic, I think, you know, to have to use his entire body like a missile to take down this mammoth man. So, yeah, for me, they're my favourite TV and pay-per-view matches, I think. And some go quite far back and some are quite recent, you know. So
that's regarding the recent match you've just said. Did you think Cage was walking away with a belt?
Well, I think there's another question we'll get onto with Cage that I'd like to discuss. No, I didn't, because it's too soon, and I think there's a lot to play off from this Sting and Darby Allin thing. But you know, Cage would be a worthy champion, I think, and at least he has a belt, an FTW championship, because I want to see him as a champion. Yeah, I didn't know a lot about Brian Cage before, but I wish I had, because he's really quite a talent.
For me, going over your matches so far, Revolution was a pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. Which is a shots for another day regarding how far people push themselves. Young Bucks always push themselves far beyond what they can do, and you can see it in the way that in their wrestling, in the passion in front of the camera, their interviews, everything about it. They just live and breathe wrestling, no matter what it is. And you're correct. I think the Revolution tag team match is one of the best I've seen in a number of years. I mean, we could sit here another day and do a list of top 10 wrestling matches from covering everything. But that has to be in the top, at least top 5, if not top 3. Darby Allin, never knew anything about him until I watched a interview with him on a YouTube channel, Cultaholic. And when they came, he was brought into, I believe, the first time we saw him on AEW was the Ring of Honor AEW show, before All Elite was actually a thing. And I thought he was fantastic. The stuff that he does with the size he is and his I don't give a crap about myself attitude, he just shows you that he's prepared to push himself to get people to watch him and to talk about him. And the fact that at the moment AEW have got such an array of talent that are all different, with them openly saying, people openly saying you could watch an AEW match and there's always an AEW show and there's always something for somebody. You might not like it all, but there'll always be something that you like, even if it's 1 or 2 matches. And the fact that you can sit there and say that, yes, that is correct, is brilliant, and they're doing really well. And as you said, regarding AEW with their matches, there's so many there that you could say that are epic, that are fantastic. I recently rewatched the All Out pay-per-view, which is free in 2 parts on YouTube, so go check it out. And watch the Lucha Brothers, which I absolutely adore, take on, defend their Mexican championships against Young Bucks. And I just, as I said, I can watch Lucha Brothers all the time. I mean, they're faced off against each other on shows. And these 2 guys are just immense, and I can watch them all day. And as you said, Young Bucks can watch them all day. For me, I'm just going to bring out just a couple. I thought the Omega Pentagon Jr. match on night 2 of the Sesh, their special 2-nighter show, was incredible. I love the tag team of Butcher and the Blade. And they had a very, very good match. Or should I say, the Butcher had a very, very good match in the last 4 to 6 weeks with Pac, with Kingston on commentary, and you could and they openly said on there that during one of the matches prior to that, Butcher wasn't happy with how he was, so he went away, got his weight down, got his momentum better, and you could see it straight away. He's lost a lot of weight, and it works well for him. And I think them 2, if not, I think them 2 will be next tag, not next, but I think them 2 should be tag champions at some point down the line, because they're very, very good. Whether or not they're on their own or whether they're in Kingston is a different thing. But anyone with Butcher's just a fantastic guy, and I think for a favourite match from recently, he's very, very good. And like you said, 2021, we've already said 3 matches that I would say our favourite matches of it. And I know they can say, well, it's only February, it's only January, but the fact that you can already say that, and I can't actually say a WWE match, shows you something that they're doing very well. You're right with Darby Allin. Darby Allin is just something that they've tapped into. He's got so much potential, and it's just going to go higher and higher. I'm not going to say a favourite match for this one, but I'm going to say a favourite championship. Basically, any TNT championship match. Whether that be with Darby Allin, Brody Lee, and Cody Rhodes, all matches were fantastic. I'd group that together because they are, yes, they're not a favourite match from AEW, but that as a title has been fantastic to put people on that instead of going after the AEW Heavyweight Championship is very, very good, and it's also brought a lot out of people and made them step up a little bit. And then for me, my final one, and then I'll pass it back to you if you've got any more, is, I can't remember which show it was, so I do apologise to listeners, was Cody versus his brother.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Dustin Rhodes, yeah, Dustin Rhodes. It just that too. You could. It was just again. It was that whole thing like you were talking about with the Young Bucks. It was the story. You know, the two brothers. They've been working their way up. One thinks one's better than thinks that the other person is better than them. The rivalry that they've had, which is real, the passion in it, and ultimately to end with them hugging was. I mean, some people go, "Oh well, you know, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just left it." But it was more than just a match. It was just everything, including the dad. And I thought the way that they worked it together with a storyline building up to the match on pay-per-view was just brilliant. And for me, that is in my so far top 5. But again, it's that whole thing of every week there'll be a different list because you'll look at a match completely different and go, actually, yeah, I like that more. So, yeah, for me, that's it. What about yourself? Have you got any to finish on?
I was going to say a few notable exceptions that didn't make the cut were actually two, I think, that you mentioned. So I wanted to talk about, the Brothers Rhodes, of course. You know, this was at Double or Nothing, the inaugural pay-per-view. And they just, like a lot of people, you know, with Dustin Rhodes, you probably thought his best days were behind him, but he continues to defy those odds, doesn't he? And his promos as well are so passionate; they get me fired up. And yeah, if anything, he came across looking like the star out of that, you know, which for a man of his age, it's a real effort. But the sight of him drenched in, you know, him and his own brother's blood, by the end of that, it was an emotional moment. And Cody had said that, you know, he's definitely in his top 3 matches, and you could see why for him. The other one I was going to mention was Pac and Omega, which originally would have been Mox and Omega at the original All Out, and that was a really tremendous match. And it started a great storyline for Omega where he'd lost, you know, a big pay-per-view there, and it hurt him mentally, you know. Pac, of course, is such a talent, and I'm glad he's had that match, but I think he needs to be in that title picture at some point. He's too good back to not be there. You know, he may be one of the best talents they've got on the show. And the only other one I was going to mention is the one that you have quite rightly mentioned was the, let me see if I can get it right, Escalada del Muerte ladder match, between the Lucha Brothers.
I'll let you pronounce that.
And the Young Bucks, which at the time I described as you literally would have to watch that match to appreciate it. It's some of the most insane spots I've ever seen. The Lucha Brothers, like you, are some of my favorites, you know, and that's, again, an example of the guys that are so good that they, you know, you don't need to hear a lot of promo work from them. You know, you understand what they're all about, and they pulled out all the stops, and you kind of feel like it would be difficult to find a promotion with a better tag team division. With too stacked, I've often said before, there's too many tag teams, you know. But yeah, for me, the Lucha Brothers probably should be the current champions, and yeah, I'd love to see the Bucks or FTR go up against them, you know, repeatedly. For me, they probably are the best tag team in the world, which is difficult to say when you've got the Young Bucks, you've got SCU, you know, you've got a division that's just overflowing with talent there. So yeah, they were the only other matches I wanted to mention. So it's great that we can't even narrow that down, you know, in just over a year, really, to just 5 or 6, you know, because
This is the thing. It's is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? How you look at it. There's so much good talent and good wrestlers, and so many good wrestling matches that you can't actually count on your hat onto top 10 a list, because you'd be feeling bad leaving a match out. Like until you brought it up, even though it's on the same pay-per-view as the Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers, I completely forgot Pac and Omega. But then obviously Pac brought that up again. The whole, you know, I haven't had my shot against you yet, Omega, because don't forget, you know, that whole thing of don't forget me and you've still got some history. But yeah, I'd be bad to give a top 10 list or even a top 5, because I'd feel very bad to leave anyone out. Because, as you said, there is so many good wrestlers and so many very, very good matches, which potentially we might revisit down the line. So thank you for dropping in for just having a quick shot with me. As ever, we're going to leave the Turnbuckle Arms as it is. We're going to close the doors for this episode. Again, thank you very much to my fellow Brood member Chris for joining me on this one. It's been fantastic to talk about AEW's favourite matches, but again, no doubt we'll be revisiting this again some point down the line. All I can say now is that you can obviously check us out on social media sites. Search Turnbuckle Arms podcast in your podcasting search bar. Subscribe, like, share. If you've got any questions or if you have any ideas of future episodes, drop them down, and we'll look into that. We're always open, even though this podcast will be closing its doors. We're always open on social media, and as ever, thank you very much for joining us. And again, thank you, Chris, for joining us.
You're welcome. Stay safe.
Stay safe, guys. Thank you very much.
There's a new bar in town. Welcome to the Turnbuckle Arms, where the banter flows like wine and the topics are as fresh as an ice-cold pint.